Good morning, lovely friends. How are you all doing today? I hope you're well. You're joining me on a really, really beautifully bright sunny morning. The sun's at its summer 3 o'clock position already, and it's only about 10:30 in the morning. Anyway, I'm delighted to see a bit of sunshine today. It still feels really, really, really wet everywhere, but later on I'm going to be doing some planting and sowing, hopefully. Before that, however, this is part 3, the last part of my little tools and kit series. It's a little bit windy today. I hope that's not going to be an issue. I shall project. But today it's all about the long-handled tools. There's no room in this shed to do it, so I'm chancing it out here this morning. You all right, Rusty? Getting comfy? Rusty's just getting comfy on the chair. So I pulled all my bits and pieces out to show and share. Before I do, I found a tool I completely forgot I had. Completely forgot. It was buried under a bit of some sort of scraps of wood. I'm so chuffed I found it because, let's just say, in terms of future-proofing and ability to get down, to sit on the ground, to do weeding, things like that, having these long-handled tools, it definitely will make life easier in the future. I'm not saying right now, but in the future. So I'm chuffed I found it. I'll show you when I get to it. Okay, let's start with the basics. The long-handled spade. Good old spade. Now, in fairness, I hardly ever use this spade. What do I use it for? I use it when I'm digging trenches for my potatoes. I use it for shoveling up horse muck when we get a delivery at the main gates and I barrow it over to my plot. It's only happened that one time earlier this year. Great. I think my squash really enjoyed it. But yeah, shoveling horse muck. Is that it? Oh, and maybe occasionally if I'm digging a hole, a sort of a bigger hole to put a plant in. So instead of using my hori knife, when I make little holes to put in my, say, tomato plants or my little brassica plants, if I'm putting something big in, like a rhubarb crown, or when I was sinking that pot with the crocosmias, that sort of thing, yeah, dig a hole with the spade. Otherwise, I rarely use it. And I think if I didn't have it, I wouldn't rush out to buy one. Because, and it's something I've mentioned in the other 2 videos, the great thing about gardening in a communal space is there are usually, check with your site, but there are usually communal tools to use. So because I use it so rarely, if I didn't have it, I wouldn't buy it, I'd just borrow the community one. And in fact, this one, I believe, if I remember correctly, I inherited it with the shed that was on my plot. When I took my plot over, I say inherited, I had to pay 50 quid for that shed. But you know what, it's fine. It did me for a few years and there were a couple of bits and bobs of tools in there and some pots and things, so didn't mind spending it. Never mind the spade, I can do without. But one of my absolute go-to tools in the garden, my garden fork. It's going to be difficult in the light, isn't it? But this has got quite... does that show it better? This has got quite fine pointed tines. It really helps it get into my heavy compact clay soil. This I did buy, and in terms of price range, it was sort of in the mid-price range. It's sort of high of the mid-price range. And something I would always say with long-handled tools, I know a lot of us buy stuff, over the internet rather than going to a shop in person. But with something like a fork, the very long-handled tools, it doesn't matter so much, but with something like a fork, I would say, if you're going to invest in one, go to a shop and try a few of them out. Now, I know you can't necessarily sink them into the ground. When I say try them out, I'm talking about trying them out for height, weight, how it feels. Being a tall lass, I'm not that tall, I'm only 5'10", but for, you know, a woman, that's considered tall. Things like this is just about long enough for me to be really comfortable with. I tried a load out and they were just too short. And even when it's only sort of 1 inch or 2 inches, you can just feel that kind of, there's that sort of pinch point you feel in your lower spine. None of us need that when we're gardening. I mean, we get aches and pains from gardening anyway. Let's not exacerbate it by having a tool that's too short. It's a great tool. I can use it for emptying my compost bins and spreading my compost out. If I didn't have a rake, I could use it pretty much as a rake, just to sort of levelling my beds. Not for a fine tilth, but just to level them a bit. Obviously, I use it to turn compost in. I use it in the spring to give my beds all a bit of a tickle over if they've crusted up a bit. Yeah, at the end I'm going to come to my essential tools, but this, a long-handled fork, yeah, I'm going to put it there because it's in the essentials pile. I would say it's pretty much essential. Just because they're next here, rather than the really long-handled, I'm going to just talk about my grass paths and my tools for the grass paths. So you've seen it in action, my strimmer. I don't have any preference for make particularly. The old strimmer completely died. I gave it to someone who's a tinkerer, a bit of a gadgets tinkerer, and said, look, either see if you can get it back into action or use it for spare parts, whatever you want. So it didn't go into the rubbish, great. So I opted for this this Ryobi make, purely because I already have a battery pack and the charger, etc., because I have it for my tools indoors at home, my jigsaw and my drill. So rather than buying a strimmer that I'd then have to buy a battery and a charging pack for separately, that's why I went for this. I have to say, I've been really happy with it. The cord lasts for ages. I've only bought one new cord in, is it 3 years I've had this now? I'm not sure. And, you know, it gets a workout in my garden. So, again, talking about the height, it completely, it adjusts in height. There's really quite a big adjustment. But also the angle of the head, the angle of the handles, all of it is adjustable. So when I first got it, it was delivered to my home, got it out the box, yay, put it all together, adjusted it to what I thought was right, got it down here, but of course when I'd adjusted it at home, I hadn't actually tried it out. And here, of course, it was just that much bit lower to the ground. I wasn't going to strim my beautiful Turkish rug at home. So I gave it a final bit of an adjustment. It's just, you know, it's great when tools have got that much of an adjustability, because it really, really makes a difference. If, you know, if you're doing a task that takes, say, an hour, if there's the slightest bit of awkwardness over the course of an hour, that awkwardness is going to turn into a horrible ache, pain. And it may be that just that amount of awkwardness, the following day or even 2 or 3 days, your back's too sore to be in the garden, whatever. It's not worth it. Get your tools just right for you. So that's the strimmer. Is it going to go in the essentials pile? Now the other thing, again back to this community thing, we do have communal strimmers we can use, but they're petrol powered. I prefer not to use that. This is electric. I charge it up at home. My electricity is from a company that's all renewables, so I feel more comfortable using renewable electricity of my own than using petrol down here. But yeah, check with your society, your site, because it may be that you have communal tools to use. And if, for example, I think it's probably the first 4 years that I had this garden, I didn't even have my own strimmer. I was borrowing, but again, it was that thing of sometimes, you know, if I was only free on a Saturday, if it was the only day I had free in the week, I'd come down, strimmers were in action all day, I had to forget it for the day. But if you're on a tight budget, it's definitely an option. Don't buy, borrow. This little tool was still on grass paths and grass edges. This is my little half moon. See, it's a little edge there. Oh, this is what I mean, I need a good cleaning session. Ooh, my bad. This is a little bit short for my liking. Where's me? I'll show you, standing side by side. Can you see? It's just that, literally, what's that, 1.5 inches difference? It feels short for me. However, there's not a lot of choice in buying these. This was fairly cheap, and it shows. It all swivels, the handle falls off. I didn't want to spend a huge amount of money because it was something that I planned to use only in the beginning and then not again afterwards. It turns out I have used it quite a few times. It's what I used to initially make my beds, as in to cut through the turf, move the turf away that's the bedside, leave the turf in place that's going to be the grass. But I have, so it was used a lot in the beginning. When I cut out the space that my deck is sunk into, I used this. Every now and again, I'll have a little bit of a neaten with it. Not often at all. Remember when I was showing how, noisy, after my neighbour's hedge was cut back massively, I realised, there's one of my beds in particular that's earmarked for this. I am going to cut the edge again and give myself another 6 inches. Because that 6 inches is another row of something. So yeah, the reason I bought it, I should say, as well, is because we didn't have a community one. You could edge with a spade. The only thing with the spade is, in its profile, it's ever so slightly like that, so you'll end up with lots of whiffles along your edge, whereas with this, it's completely, I'm talking about its profile that way, so it's completely straight into the edge. If you do want to cut beds, cut paths, check first to see if anyone's got one. I mean, literally, if anyone came to me and said, Vivi, could I borrow your edging tool? I'd say, yes, of course you can. I would not be in a hurry to have it back. If someone said, can I borrow your fork? I'd say, yeah, of course you can. You've got 10 minutes, give it back. But that, yeah, someone could borrow it for a month. It wouldn't bother me. Could I live without it? Nowadays, yes. Initially, it comes back to that thing, doesn't it, of, what's important to you in your garden. For me, the most important thing, obviously, is productivity, but also because I have no outside space at home. I don't even have a little balcony. I don't even have a window ledge to put pots on. This is my garden as well as my veg food production area. So yeah, I want it to look nice, and for me, it's kind of a relief, I can see you again now. It's not for everybody, but I've said it before, I like my neat edges. For me, it kind of sets the plants off. I don't get distracted from looking at tatty edges. I'm looking at the tatty edges and not the plants. I'm looking at the plants. My edges are like a picture frame and the plants are the beautiful picture in the middle. So yeah, for me, it's definitely worth it. For you, it may not be. Last tool, in terms of the grass paths, my edging shears, long-handled edging shears. Again, these are something I went to the shop to try in terms of length. Again, they're about, I'd say, 1.5 inches, 2 inches too short for me, but they were the longest ones I could get. It's just one of those things, isn't it? This doesn't bother me as much as it would if it was, say, the fork, because the fork I use a lot for all sorts of different jobs, and I use it in all sorts of different positions, you know, bending, lifting, moving, twisting. The fork had to be right. This, and like I say, it's in use so much, whereas the edging shears, twice a month at most. And it's maybe a 20-minute, half an hour job, half an hour at most, twice a month at most. So it's an hour's use each month. So that height thing, it bothers me, but it doesn't hurt me, if you see what I mean. Because I'm a freak for my edges, it's going in my essentials pile. Right, oh, I've got a feeling we're going to have, oh, clatter bang, clatter bang. Okay, moving on to the long handled tools. The first one I'm going to show you, oh, things are dusty, I don't use them that much. This tool is really precious to me, and I don't know if you can see from there. You see, that's the width of the handle, and here it gets quite thin. That's from use, that's from a hand and use after years and years and years of using. I wouldn't have bought this tool, I inherited it from my dear friend Paddy, who used to have a plot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over from me. Gorgeous old guy, Irish guy, and like, it's a cliche, but he properly did have a twinkle in his eye. I adored that man. My top bed, the one where my number sign is, that first edge that comes down my side path, not the long edge, but that first edge by the side path, Paddy cut that for me. I was AWOL from the allotment site for a while. I can't remember why it was. It might have been one of those occasions when my back had gone. He came along and cut the edge for me, God love him. Anyway, Paddy died, well, how long ago was it now? Was it 2018 or 17? I mean, it seems like yesterday, it seems like ages ago, but he's always here. Anyway, I inherited this from Paddy, so I've kept it, and I do use it occasionally. I'd better show you what the tool is, hadn't I? It's a long-handled three-pronged cultivator. So you can see it's just in profile, it's flat, it's got a slight angle. It's actually quite a useful tool. I use it sort of chopping down, a sort of chopping and flicking up action in beds where, again, where things have got a bit compact and a bit, I can come along with this and just break it up a little bit. I haven't, well, you can tell for it's dusty and cobwebby. I haven't used it for ages because, actually thinking about it, I think Paddy must have died much longer ago, maybe 2016, because I worked this out the other, right, cut a long story short, since I've been doing crop and drop and covering my beds have been much more manageable, and I haven't needed to use this. I think 2018, I'm just remembering when I had my first cathedral bed. That bed was a nightmare after green manure, and I used it on that. So I definitely, you know, it's useful, but I could definitely do without. However, having said that, that's not going anywhere. That is kind of like a prized tool, just because everything that's associated with it. Right, so my new draw hoe, which you saw the other day. So this is going to be great for doing my edge gutters, but, and this is what I mean about having long-handled tools and kind of future-proofing a bit. I'm going to give this a go today, actually. The idea with this is when I'm making drills, when I'm making a long drill to sow seeds into, so I'll make a long drill today for the broad beans, rather than being bent right over and using my hori knife to make the drill with, which is what I've done for years, now I can stand up straight and make the drill with this. That's what I mean. It's like, I'm not saying, oh, I'm suddenly like this old woman and I can't garden anymore. I want to garden for a long, long, long time to come. So, great. Future-proofing. And it's got a twin, so that's a draw hoe. It's got a twin, but oh my goodness, this is perfect for Halloween. Look at the dust. This is the one I totally, completely forgot I had. And like I say, it was buried in my daybed underneath a load of scraps of timber that I've accumulated. This is my, look at the state of it, look at it. That is definitely a Halloween hoe. A Halloween hoe! Woohoo! Watch out, Rusty, the hoe's coming down. So this is my Dutch hoe, and this is the kind of hoe you use for weeding. Chop the heads off with their heads. That's also very Halloweeny, isn't it? Let's have some headless weeds in the garden. Now, again, until now, God, it's filthy. I think what I need, actually it might not happen till the spring, but it won't happen in the spring because in the spring I get too busy with the garden. I feel like I need to have everything out of the shed, give everything a clean and put it back. Ain't gonna happen. Yeah, this, so until now, I've done all my weeding. Sometimes I sit on my garden stool, but really for the most part I'm either standing over the bed bending, using my hori-hori knife if they need to, you know, I always try and get the roots out too. So if the ground's quite dry, I'll use the hori-hori knife. If the ground's wet, I can usually pull them. Sometimes I'll sit right down on the grass paths next to a bed and work away like that. But it is getting a little bit more awkward. So I'm chuffed I found that today. Chuffed. Not necessarily, you know what? The thing about bending, stretching, moving down, up, it is good. It's kind of, I've got cobwebs on me now. It keeps me active, it keeps me flexible. And I don't want to suddenly only garden from a standing up position. Because, you know, if you don't use it, you lose it. But for days, you know, let's say I've got a day where, oh, my back's a little bit naughty. It gets naughty every now and again. But let's say it's a day when my back's being a bit naughty. I can bring this baby out instead of bending with the hori-hori knife. Not essential though. Yeah. Right, finally, Esther, I've got two rakes. I've got just bog standard garden rake with that solid head. You know, I mean, it's had a lot of use over the years. It matches the hoe. It's the same make as the hoe. I might have bought this as a kind of a buy one get one free type offer. I can't remember, it's that long ago. But yeah, it is useful levelling out my beds. When I've put chicken manure on, give it a bit of a rake in, that sort of thing. But like I was saying about the long-handled garden fork, if I didn't have the rake, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I could just about get a bed level by using the fork. But I do like to have it. And finally, also in the rake department, is my spring timed rake. This is great. I use it for raking up. I use it for raking up leaves. Oh, that sounds beautiful when it comes out. Yeah, I use it for raking up leaves. Simple as that. The rigid garden rake with that kind of small but rigid head, no, not really any good for raking up leaves because actually it just damages the lawn underneath. In some ways, if I had to choose between the two, I'd kind of go for this one. Certainly at this stage I'm at with the garden now, because gathering up leaves or grass clippings, you know, to use as mulch, that's kind of more important to me than having a perfectly smooth, level bed to sow into. I like that, of course, But this one, well, as you saw, what was I doing? Oh yeah, it was after I dug out my main crop potatoes. I'd given it a sprinkle of chicken poo. The bed was all lumpy bumpy where I'd, some dips where I'd gone down for potatoes, some bits where it mounded up where I'd shifted the soil to get to the potatoes. And that day, the rigid headed fork, which is the one I would normally use for that kind of job, it was in the daybed. Poppy was sound asleep. I didn't want to disturb her. Stupid, isn't it? But this one was out, and actually it did the job perfectly well. So I think if I had to choose between the two rakes at this stage in my garden for me, I'd go with the spring-timed one. So that's it. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of my long-handled tools. So in précis, I was saying the other day, in terms of my hand tools, my hori knife, my Falco secateurs, and some sort of trug, some vessel for carting detritus around the garden, for carting harvests around the garden and back to the shed, for carting things from the shed to the garden. So some sort of trug. I'm going to give myself a top 5 tools. Falco secateurs. Falco secateurs / pruners for everyone in the States. My hori knife, my big trug, they're not going to be everyone's essentials, but they are mine, my edging shears, and finally, Esther, my garden fork. With those 5 tools, I think I could perfectly, happily, not only manage the garden, but have the garden looking how I like it to look. Brilliant, just 5 tools. In terms of other essential kit and equipment, in terms of those accessories, I would say watering cans, Enviromesh, and a first aid kit. Oh, and trays and pots. So it's 10 items now, isn't it? What did I just say for accessories? Watering cans, Enviromesh, first aid kit, trays, pots. So 5 accessories and 5 tools. With those 10 things, yeah, I think I would pretty much be able to do everything that I want to do. So what I will say is I'm very grateful that I've got all this kit. I don't need any more kit. I'm good for kit. My kit involves quite a lot of hand-me-downs, quite a lot of things which have been surplus to someone else, so they've given it to me. There's quite a lot of stuff that I found that's been thrown away, so I've grabbed it. There's stuff that I've had from Free Cycle, there's stuff I've had from neighbours' front walls. There are beautiful, the expensive things, the secateurs, the knife and the watering cans have all been Christmas gifts. This is an accumulation, everything I've showed you is an accumulation of about 10 years or so of me being on this site. As I said the other day, if I was to buy all of this stuff in one go, God, I dread to think probably hundreds of pounds. So don't be in a hurry to buy anything. Check with your allotment society to see if they have tools you can borrow. Ask friends if they have tools you can borrow. Look at Free Cycle. Look in your local charity shops. Keep an eye out in dumpsters, as you say in America, in rubbish bins and skips over here. You can get going with very little. I think the absolute get-going essentials would be long-handled garden fork, a trowel, the hori knife of some description, and maybe a pair of secateurs if you're taking on a really overgrown plot and you're having to cut a lot of stuff back. But really, with a trowel and a long-handled garden fork, you're away. Yeah, love it. Oh. You see, that's another reason for me not wanting to move house out of this area. I don't want to have to cart all this stuff away to a whole new area. There's too much of it. Yeah, I'm very grateful for everything I've got and for all the hand-me-downs and the gifts over the years. It's brilliant. I'm proper kitted out now. Lovely. All right, my lovelies. Oh, it's getting quite dark up there. I mean, the sun's coming out every now and again. I hope we're not forecast any rain. I forgot to check. I need to get on with planting and sowing, the very last things of... Oh yeah. Oh, how lovely is that? Do you remember, I think it was back in April, at the beginning of April, I came back to the plot having not been here at all in March, and I got all emotional because someone had fixed my table, and then I found out who it was. That's the same neighbour, all right buddy, who's just brought a tool to me. Here's the irony, it's a Dutch hoe, you know, the one for weeding. I'd completely forgotten he'd mentioned it. He'd got the head, the metal part, but it had no handle. He's basically put a new handle in it for me and just handed it over to say, there you go, made it for you. That's so sweet, isn't it? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to get him a nice bottle of wine to say thank you, but also that now means my other hoe, the one that's really dusty that I just found, I can add that now to our community shed tools. So any newbie or anyone, not even a newbie, but anyone... Mate, you're so loud. So yeah, anyone who wants to borrow it can borrow one. Oh, I love that, love that, love that. He's just oiled it. I just had a little play with it and I smell that oil on my hands. Linseed oil, I think. Right, I need to get sewing, don't I? Or maybe I'm just going to take you down, have a little last shot. Rusty, where have you gone? Come here. Yeah, I think maybe before I do any sewing, I'm just going to have some cuddles. Oh, you made me jump, but oh, you've got a cold, have you? So I think, for now, I'm going to say, this could go on a while, that from me and Rusty, cheerio for now, and I'll see you again, I hope, before too long. Bye for now. Say bye, Rusty. Bye. I don't know what your voice is, Rusty. Oh, blimey, Rusty. I don't know what you do for a cat cold. Do you need medicine? I don't know. Shall I blow his nose? Right, stop it, Vivi, go. See you soon.